Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're continuing our series on abortion and pregnancy termination, and today we're specifically talking about an issue related to the heartbeat bills, the ones that say that 6 weeks is the time frame where you can measure a fetal heartbeat on ultrasound, and they're using this to say that a fetal heartbeat indicates life and it indicates viability. So if you have a fetal heartbeat, therefore, you should not be able to terminate a pregnancy after this point because you are ending a life. This is the rhetoric they're trying to use. And this is very problematic, especially for people in the medical field and for people working with those who are pregnant, because there are cases where you can have a miscarriage where the fetus still has a heartbeat. So in that case, if you are under one of these laws, if you had a miscarriage and the baby still had a heartbeat during this miscarriage, you might be prosecuted and you might have some problems there. So there's a reason why we need to be informed on the science here and understand the issues related to this. And today's topic is an inevitable abortion. So if you remember our timeline from last time, an abortion is ending a pregnancy 20 weeks or earlier, and this can be spontaneous, as in a miscarriage, or it can be medically or surgically induced. And as we also remember, 20 weeks or earlier is non-viable. So if we were to end a pregnancy at this stage, the fetus would likely not survive. So again, look at this. We have some overlap here. We've got the 6 weeks here for the heartbeat bills, and then we have the 20 weeks for viability, and we're talking somewhere in this range. So it's possible to have a miscarriage within this time frame after 6 weeks and before 20 weeks that is non-viable but still has a heartbeat while it is happening. And this is what we're going to call an inevitable abortion. So exactly what is this? How do we get a miscarriage with a fetal heartbeat? So an inevitable abortion refers to a live intrauterine pregnancy with an open cervical os. So I say live because this has a fetal heartbeat most of the time. So you're pregnant, you have a fetus with a heartbeat, but you also have an open cervical os at or earlier than 20 weeks of gestation, which is non-viable. So when you are pregnant and as you are about to deliver a fetus, your cervix has to dilate in order for the baby to come out. And there's a membrane covering the inside of the uterus, covering the baby, housing the amniotic fluid. It is the amniotic membranes. And once the cervix dilates, this membrane is going to rupture. And this is where we get the term water breaking. So if your water breaks, these membranes rupture, and that is kind of signaling the beginnings of labor. You're in labor and you're about to deliver this baby. So these membranes are going to rupture because they sit on top of the cervix, and the cervix is going to dilate. As the cervix dilates, it puts pressure on these amniotic membranes, and they're going to rupture. You're going to break your water, so to speak. And then at this stage, it almost inevitably, almost 100% of the time, leads to fetal demise because it's earlier than 20 weeks. The fetus is not viable, but the os is open, the membranes are ruptured, and the fetus is going to be passed, and there may or may not be an infection associated. So I'm going to draw out a picture of how all this happens. So we have a uterus, and we have our amniotic fluid in here. We have the cervical os down here, and you'll see that my little stick figure baby is head up because this is early on in the pregnancy. The baby is not flipped over yet. This is the orientation of the baby, usually earlier than 20 weeks. So what happens here is the cervix is going to dilate, and it's going to put pressure on this membrane, and it's going to cause it to rupture. This membrane is going to rupture. It's often going to have a lot of blood involved, and this fetus is going to be passed out through the cervix out into the world. But it is earlier than 20 weeks. It's probably not going to live. So what do we do about this? The treatment is expectant management. So that just means that we let it happen. It's been shown that there are more problems to try to keep the baby inside and keep it gestating than to just let this spontaneous abortion take place. Even if there's a heartbeat present, you just kind of need to make sure that no complications are happening, but this fetus needs to come out. It's not going to have any benefits from staying inside because it is inevitably going to become a miscarriage if you leave it in. So then this brings up a question, because there's a class of drugs called tocolytics. So tocolysis is when in certain types of pregnancy, if we want to keep the baby gestating, we can give a medication called a tocolytic, which is going to cause the uterus to not expel the baby and keep the baby inside. So why can't we use tocolysis to keep this fetus gestating longer and to prevent this inevitable abortion from happening at all? Well, here's the problem. We have an open cervical os, right? And we have this rupture of membranes. So this membrane that's covering this fetus is a form of protection. It keeps a lot of things from the outside world outside. But when we rupture this membrane, we lose that protection. So no, we cannot, because we lose this layer of protection. This bacteria from the outside world is going to be able to go up into the uterus, and there's no longer a membrane protecting the baby. And so this bacteria can go in, and it can make this fetus septic, and it can make the amniotic fluid septic. So this is called Chorioamnionitis. It's an infection of the amniotic fluid, and this is dangerous and very, very deadly. So we should not leave the baby inside while these membranes are ruptured, because it can lead to this very detrimental infection. This fetus was not going to be viable anyway. Most cases, if you are having an open cervical os and rupture of membranes at earlier than 20 weeks, it is inevitably going to lead to a miscarriage, and that's why we're calling it an inevitable abortion. But if we were to leave this baby in, if we were to give drugs to just say, no, you can't deliver this baby right now, then we are very susceptible to chorioamnionitis, which can cause maternal death. So this is why we have to deliver. We have to just let this happen, let it take its course, because it's going to be worse for everybody to keep the baby in, even if there is a heartbeat at the time that this happens. Even if the baby has a heartbeat and then it gets expelled and still has that heartbeat and then can't stay alive much longer, it doesn't matter, because it is worse. It would be worse to leave this baby in and to kill both of them than to allow this miscarriage to happen. So I know this sounds very controversial, but this is why these bills matter, and this is why these laws matter, because from the physician's perspective, if somebody were to have an inevitable abortion and we were under one of these 6-week heartbeat bills, they could be prosecuted for doing these correct standards of care and protecting the people involved. So I hope that this made sense. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I will see you all in the next one.